Well, I think to begin with, I think what we were left feeling and reminded of is that democracy is not a spectator sport.
What drew you to this program, to cover this program?
Jesse and I, probably like a lot of people, were trying to process the results of the 2016 election. We were looking for work around that and just hadn't really found anything. And then sometime in 2017, we read an article in the Washington Post about the legislature at Texas Boys State that year voting to secede from the Union. That struck us as something kind of both funny but also profound. So we thought, well, is this a reflection of the national mood, or is this just a lark, or what's going on there? And we wanted to know what they would do the following year, really. And so we called them up, fully expecting Texas Boys State leadership to, not take our call, because they did get some negative press coverage from that vote, the secession vote. But to their credit, they took our call, and we ended up and then we made the film, after.
It's a little early to start running for governor, don't you think? We don't even have a party formed yet. You don't have any support in the primaries.
No, but if you have to start early,
you don't have to start this early.
I'd never heard of this program. So walk me through the process. Do you apply to go to this? How does it all start?
I believe that the application process is a bit different for every single, school in the district. Some people just nominate somebody and they go. In my personal experience, I was recommended to my counselor by my JROTC instructor, who then nominates me to a board of American Legionnaires, and then I have to interview with that board, and they tell me right then if I got into Boys State or not. So it was a pretty somewhat rigorous. I mean, the questions were definitely a bit hard, and they do only want the best that the state has to send. So that was the experience for me.
There are a lot of people that I've met that have different lives than I have, their upbringing, what issues affect them.
Next thing we know, there were gunshots and everything. It happened in the art hallway.
Jesse, what kind of access did you all have? It seemed like you had access. They basically said, here, we're going to set you free, film what you want to film. Is that what happened?
We had completely unfettered access, extraordinary. I mean, that was really the condition of making the film too, is we said, look, we want to embed within this program, we want to follow a handful of boys through it. And we want to be able to film everywhere, on stage and backstage. And to their credit, the organization said yes. And the young men we met were open to us filming them and really trusted us to tell that story. And so it was really to be able to bring the camera close, to get those intense close-ups, to put the audience on stage with our young men was very exciting, and to go on that journey with them and to give people that kind of roller coaster experience that we had with the camera.
Rene, the next question for you, and I'm going to go through the line with everybody. What did you learn most from this program?
I learned most that politics aren't really for me, and I think that's just the program doing its job, giving youth the opportunity to engage with politics at a safer distance to decide whether it's not for them. So I think my engagement with politics needs to be different, maybe in the nonprofit or the education space.
My grandmother told me a few things. You have to have faith, hope, and a bit of a pissed off attitude.
Ben, what did you learn most from this program?
I'd say I learned personally and professionally kind of two different things. When I walked out of the program, I gained an immense amount of confidence in myself personally, because you've seen it. I don't want to, spoil it on an interview for anyone looking to watch, but I performed under a high pressure situation, leading a really big group of people in a way that I never thought I could before I came in. And doing it and pulling something big off, right, felt really good. And it was a boost of confidence that still hasn't really left me in a lot of ways. And it's made me a better person in that regard. But I'd say professionally and politically, especially after watching the documentary and getting time to reflect and reflecting in the context of a lot of different current events going on, it's taught me that it is very important to think before you speak, look where you're shooting, and, never shoot first and ask questions later on stuff.
The harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph.
We live in the greatest democracy in the world, and I feel like a big problem is there's a lot of people today that are willing to discount the idea that America truly is a great country.
Amanda, what did you learn from this whole experience? It is really eye-opening, what is shown in this film. But I'm curious what you learned by doing this.
I think there's a lot of takeaway. I don't think there's any one particular takeaway for any one person. So I actually love that about most of the films that we make tend to be a little, people walk away with different things. But for me, the experience, I think meeting these 4 people was very encouraging to me about our future. I don't know a lot of Gen Z folks. My children are them, but they're not quite 17 yet. So I think watching Rene and Stephen in particular go through this program and excel the way they did, spoiler alert, but for me was very, very important to how I see things going forward. I mean, this environment they were really outsiders on some level, and they were embraced, and Stephen in particular, and that kind of leadership with integrity and everything around that was very encouraging and hopeful for me. I mean, I also learned a lot. I also saw a lot of things that were very scary, but those were sort of the things I expected to see.
Anyone here not signed for governor? Okay. Will you please go? Yes, sign for governor. Have a sheriff, please.
Robert, Austin, Texas in the house. How are you, sir?
Doing all right. How are you?
Good. Same question for you. What did you learn most from being a part of this program?
So I would say that going into the program, I expected to be going into a very red room and having to play that room in order to get elected. And I went in ready to play that game. But I learned through meeting all these great guys and having these civil political conversations that most of us actually fall somewhere in the middle of the political spectrum, and almost all of us want the same thing. We want what's best for this country and this state. My biggest takeaway is that if we can all get together, we can all have those civil conversations, most of the time we can find a path forward.
Definitely my upbringing has led to where I am today. My mom worked at a gas station. She was undocumented for a time. She is what I think the American dream should be.
Stephen, your speeches were incredible. As a matter of fact, I was standing up every time you spoke and screaming and yelling at the TV as I was watching this thing. I really was. How difficult was it for you to write what you said?
It was difficult in the sense that I had to find a message originally that was unifying, that wasn't divisive in its subject matter. And as it went along, had to write speeches that addressed a particular divisive matter that comes up in the film, gun reform. The pressure and the stress from those speeches is that the program is so fast-paced and you're doing things all day that most of my speeches had to be written around 2 a.m. And then revised throughout the day before I gave them. So that definitely, we were all running on about 4 to 5 hours of sleep at best at Boy State. And so definitely it was a little bit hard with everything going on around me, to be able to sit down, find a quiet place and start writing.
Rene, how much pressure was it? Because it seemed like, and again, no spoilers here, but you had a lot going against you. You had a lot of wins going against you through the program, as we saw in the documentary. So how much pressure was it for you to get through this?
I will say it was an immense amount of pressure, but some of the things that the documentary can't show is the things that I was doing in the background to, save face and to rebuild my political capital throughout the camp experience. So I will say there was immense odds against me, but I had a great team of people who were working with me. And I was very much so willing to do anything to keep my job. So I was, in the background, making deals, writing speeches. So it was a lot of work, but in the end, I think I appreciate the work that it required for me to keep my position, because it helped me show how serious I was about the position I was in. And it was also a signal to those who weren't with me on my originally that I was serious about representing them.
And it's like, I think about me, right? Like, I'm an amputee, right? Like, it is not fair that I am missing my legs. I am put at a disadvantage that most other people do not have to deal with. But, like, clearly, I've been reasonably successful.
Ben, what are your future plans?
I would still want to serve the United States. I don't know if I want to do it through elected office necessarily, but I definitely want to work in either the Department of State or the Department of Defense, or somewhere along those lines. So,
same question for you, Robert.
So, after I get done with what I'm doing right now and get done with my time in the Army, I'm planning on, like Ben, going into public service in other ways, hopefully for me through some kind of local elected office right here in Texas, something like commissioner or sheriff, something like that.
I am third oldest. I'm the first one to get past freshman year of high school. I'm on the course to be the first one to graduate from high school. So it's almost like I have to succeed.
What made you guys, both of you, decide to zero in on these particular stories? Everybody that you feature in this film is just amazing. But what drew you into this? We'll talk about Stephen in particular.
Yeah. Well, I think to begin with, I think what we were left feeling and reminded of is that democracy is not a spectator sport. And what we saw with these young men in particular who we filmed is that they threw themselves into this process. They put their hearts and their souls on the line. And they made bad choices, some of them, and some of them acted with incredible integrity and idealism and all very ambitious. And so Stephen, it was remarkable to watch his rise. I mean, he presented to us initially as a very humble person, which he is, but also extraordinary in his political talents and gifts. And to see him embraced and to see him become or to find that common ground in this very diverse, politically diverse space was very uplifting for us and did, as Amanda said, fill us with some optimism. And to see what he'll do next is really exciting.
Well, thank you both for your time. Thanks for this film. And please do Girl State. I want to see that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'd love to. We can't wait to do a sequel.